Get ready, everyone, because this story will take you on an intense and emotional journey. Let's begin in the final days of April 2025, when a serious and troubling time began between two neighboring countries in South Asia, India and Pakistan. For a short period before this, things seemed to be improving between them. There were small signs of peace and calm, offering some hope that their long history of conflict might ease. However, this period of calm did not last. Suddenly, the situation turned alarming and filled with tension. The turning point came on April 22nd, when a violent and shocking incident occurred. This tragic event took place in Kashmir, a stunning mountainous area known for its breathtaking views, but also for the long-standing territorial dispute between India and Pakistan. The conflict over Kashmir has continued for many decades, with both countries claiming full rights over it. On that unfortunate day, gunmen launched a deadly attack in a location called Byron Valley, which lies close to a town known as Pahalgam. The attackers fired at groups of people who were there to enjoy the natural beauty of the region. These innocent visitors, mostly Indian citizens on vacation, had come to relax and explore the scenic valley, not knowing that violence would suddenly strike. The shooting was devastating, claiming the lives of 26 people. It was the deadliest act of violence against civilians, not soldiers, in this part of the region for over 2 decades. The news spread fast and deeply upset many individuals across both nations and beyond. Indian officials quickly accused Pakistan of being involved, suggesting that the attackers had received support from across the border. In response, the Indian government took several tough measures to express their outrage and disapproval. One of the most significant steps was suspending cooperation on the Indus Waters Treaty, an important and long-standing agreement that managed the fair sharing of river water between the two countries. This treaty had been respected for many years, even during earlier conflicts, because of its critical role in water management across both sides. By halting discussions related to this agreement, India signaled that it was no longer willing to cooperate as before. Alongside this, India introduced additional measures targeting Pakistan to show its firm stance. Meanwhile, Pakistan's leaders strongly denied the allegations, insisting that they had no part in the attack. They said that India was accusing them without proof and trying to create more conflict. Pakistan rejected India's claims and called them unjust. In return, Pakistan also responded with its own actions, showing that it would not be silent or accept the blame. Both sides stood firm, exchanging words and actions that only added to the tension. The situation grew more serious by the day, creating a high-risk environment in the region. What made this even more dangerous was the fact that both countries possess nuclear weapons, extremely destructive tools that, if used, could cause catastrophic harm, not just locally but globally. Because of this, the international community began watching the events closely. There was growing concern worldwide that this argument could spiral into something much worse, possibly even leading to war. People everywhere were worried, hoping that efforts would be made to reduce the tension before any irreversible damage happened. The fear of escalation was real, as the crisis touched on long-running disagreements, powerful emotions, and matters of national pride. In such situations, even small actions or words can lead to greater conflict. The danger was not only in the fighting itself, but also in the deep mistrust between the two sides. It was a deeply troubling chapter for South Asia, a region already familiar with difficult histories, and the world watched, hoping that wisdom and peace would win over anger and revenge. Would you like me to generate a matching AI image for this story? Asia is home to many cultures, countries, and histories, and this story highlights a serious and emotional event that took place in this diverse region. It helps people understand what happened during a tense period between India and Pakistan, and why it caused so much concern. In this account, we will closely look at the tragic attack that occurred in Kashmir, how India responded with firm steps, and how Pakistan reacted to the accusations. This story is important for everyone because it helps explain the reasons behind the increased tension and why the situation became so dangerous, not just for the two countries involved, but also for the entire region. Events like this can bring back old problems and create more trouble in the future if not handled carefully. On April 22, 2025, a terrible incident unfolded in a peaceful and scenic part of Kashmir called Byron Valley, located near the town of Pahalgam. This location is known for its stunning hills and attracts many visitors who come to experience its natural beauty. On that particular day, armed men suddenly arrived and began shooting at groups of travelers. Witnesses later said that the attackers appeared to ask the visitors questions before targeting specific individuals, possibly selecting who to harm based on certain answers. The violence was unexpected and horrifying. 26 people lost their lives, and most of them were Indian citizens who had come to enjoy their holiday. One of the victims was from Nepal, making it clear that the tragedy affected people from outside India as well. This attack was considered the deadliest against ordinary people in the Kashmir area in more than 2 decades. Shortly afterward, an organization named the Resistance Front, also known as TRF, posted messages online claiming responsibility. They expressed dislike toward outsiders coming to settle in Kashmir. However, the group didn't provide any evidence to prove their involvement. Indian authorities immediately accused TRF of being linked to Pakistan. Officials believed that the group was receiving funds, weapons, and help from across the border. Within just 48 hours, police in Jammu and Kashmir released images of 3 suspects. 2 of them they said were Pakistani nationals. This led India to be even more certain that Pakistan played a role in the violence. Pakistan, on the other hand, completely rejected these claims. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif denied that his nation had any connection to the attackers and insisted that India's statements were false. Pakistan also offered to take part in an investigation, provided that it was neutral, fair, and based on facts. The people living in Kashmir were deeply affected. Usually, attacks in the region target military or police personnel, not vacationers. This change in target shocked the public. Citizens came together in grief, some holding peaceful marches and lighting candles to honor those who had died. Business owners felt fear too, especially those who depended on tourism. April is a busy month for visitors, and they worried that fewer people would now come, which could hurt the local economy and lead to loss of jobs. Everyone felt uneasy about what the future might bring. The problems between India and Pakistan go back many years. The main issue that continues to create conflict is the region of Kashmir. The tension began when British rule ended in 1947, and India was divided to form 2 separate nations, India and Pakistan. The ruler of Jammu and Kashmir at that time chose to join India, but Pakistan did not accept this decision. This disagreement led to their first military conflict. After that war, Kashmir was split into 2 parts, and a military border called the Line of Control, or LOC, was created. India governed one part while Pakistan controlled the other. However, both countries still claimed the entire territory as their own. Because of this ongoing dispute, the border area remains heavily guarded. It has become one of the most militarized zones in the world. More wars followed after 1947, including major ones in 1965 and 1971, further deepening the mistrust. In the Indian-administered region of Kashmir, armed resistance began in the late 1980s. Since then, various groups have been fighting against Indian rule. The 2 neighbors have completely different views on this conflict. India believes that Pakistan supports these fighters and provides them with assistance, including weapons and training. It labels this interference as cross-border terrorism. On the other hand, Pakistan sees it as a struggle for freedom by the local population. These sharply different perspectives have made the situation even harder to resolve. When violence like the April 2025 attack happens, it not only adds to the pain of the people directly affected, but also threatens peace and stability in the entire region. The presence of nuclear weapons on both sides adds to the risk. Any conflict between 2 nuclear-armed nations automatically draws international attention and fear. The world watches closely whenever tensions rise between India and Pakistan, hoping that dialogue and wisdom will prevent further damage. This story reminds us how one violent event can bring back long-standing disagreements and lead to fear, sorrow, and uncertainty. Understanding this story helps people everywhere see why peace is so important, and why old problems need honest solutions before they turn into future disasters. The long-standing conflict between India and Pakistan over the Kashmir region became violent again in April 2025, when a tragic attack took place in the Byron Valley near Pahalgam, a scenic area often visited by tourists. On that day, gunmen suddenly appeared and began firing at groups of visitors, mostly targeting men, after reportedly asking questions. This brutal and unexpected assault resulted in the deaths of 26 people, most of them Indian nationals, along with one person from Nepal. The group known as the Resistance Front (TRF) later claimed responsibility through online statements, saying they opposed outsiders settling in Kashmir, although they did not provide proof of their involvement. The Indian government quickly accused TRF of being supported by Pakistan, claiming that the attackers received financial and logistical help from across the border. Within 2 days, Indian police released photos of 3 suspects, stating that 2 were from Pakistan, which strengthened India's belief that Pakistan played a role. However, Pakistan's leadership, including Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, firmly denied any involvement, labeling India's accusations as baseless and unverified. Pakistan offered to cooperate with a neutral investigation if conducted fairly, while asserting that it only supports the rights of Kashmiris seeking independence, not violent actions. Over many years, countless soldiers, militants, and regular people have lost their lives due to this unresolved issue. Tensions have flared before, such as in 1999 during the Kargil conflict, when troops crossed the line of control, or LOC, and more recently in 2019, after a deadly car bombing in Pulwama that killed several Indian paramilitary forces. That attack led India to carry out airstrikes inside Pakistan, which responded with its own fighter jets, resulting in an aerial confrontation. In the same year, India made a significant constitutional change by revoking the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, arguing that it would help unify the region with the rest of the country. Pakistan opposed this move, saying it violated agreements and disrespected the people of Kashmir. Despite a temporary improvement in relations in 2021, when both nations agreed to stop cross-border firing, the peace was fragile and collapsed after the 2025 attack. In response to the killings, Indian leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, promised to bring justice to the victims, stating that those responsible would be hunted down no matter where they were. The Indian government initiated a series of strong diplomatic and military actions. It expelled several Pakistani diplomats and reduced the number of staff allowed in each other's embassies. Indian visas for Pakistanis were cancelled, and those already in India were asked to return home. The primary land route between the two nations, the Attari-Wagah border, was shut down, affecting trade and civilian travel. Another serious move was India's decision to suspend its participation in the Indus Waters Treaty, a water-sharing agreement in place since 1960, which had survived previous wars and crises. Cutting cooperation on river resources was seen as an extreme step, considering Pakistan's heavy dependence on this water for agriculture. Meanwhile, the Indian Army began intensive search operations across Kashmir, using helicopters and sealing off certain areas. These raids led to gun battles in which a soldier and several suspected militants, including a known commander named Altaf Lai, were killed. Additionally, homes belonging to suspected attackers' families were demolished, at least 9 buildings, causing outrage among rights organizations and local politicians, who said such collective punishment harmed innocent people. On the military front, India displayed its defense capabilities by sending its powerful naval ship, the INS Vikrant, along with fighter aircraft into the Arabian Sea. Another vessel, the INS Surat, successfully tested a missile, and the Indian Air Force conducted flights near the lock, signaling readiness. The Army Chief, General Anindra Dwi, visited the conflict zone to assess the troops' preparedness. These demonstrations of power were aimed at showing India's resolve in responding to domestic pressure to act decisively after the massacre. From the Indian government's perspective, appearing strong on national security was essential to maintain public confidence. On the other hand, Pakistan continued to reject any link to the attack, saying it had no involvement in the deaths, and suggesting that the claim made by India was politically motivated and lacked concrete evidence. The Pakistani leadership insisted it supported peaceful efforts to highlight the wishes of Kashmir's people, and proposed participating in a transparent investigation, if managed by neutral parties. This tragic episode not only reignited hostilities, but also reminded the world that unresolved issues, especially those as complex as Kashmir, can quickly turn peaceful times into dangerous crises. Many observers around the globe are worried that the fragile relationship between the two nuclear-armed countries could deteriorate further unless there is meaningful dialogue and mutual trust. Until the root causes are addressed and a fair solution is found, the risk of future violence remains high, affecting not only the region, but also international stability. Tensions between India and Pakistan rose sharply after recent violent events, especially following a deadly attack in Kashmir, which led to serious diplomatic and military responses from both countries. Pakistan believed that India's reaction to the situation was unfair and politically motivated. The National Security Committee of Pakistan met and stated that India was acting aggressively and blaming Pakistan without any solid evidence. In response to India's steps, Pakistan expelled several Indian diplomats from Islamabad and reduced the number of Indian staff allowed in its High Commission to just 30 from May 1st. Additionally, Pakistan stopped giving travel visas to Indian citizens, which made it nearly impossible for Indians to visit Pakistan. One of the most alarming reactions was Pakistan's threat to withdraw from the 1972 agreement that helps regulate peace efforts and the line of control, the de facto border in the disputed Kashmir region. This move highlighted how critical the situation had become. Pakistan also cut all trade with India, banning the import and export of goods, even if they passed through other countries. Airspace restrictions were introduced as well, with Pakistan banning Indian planes from flying through its skies. This action led to increased travel times and higher costs for Indian airlines. Top Pakistani leaders, including Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar and Defense Minister Khawaja Asif, made strong public statements. Dar said Pakistan would respond equally if India used force, while Asif suggested that a military attack from India could be imminent. These comments were made to send a strong message that Pakistan was fully prepared to protect its territory. Pakistani troops were deployed in larger numbers along the line of control, and reports indicated that heavy weapons like artillery were moved closer to sensitive areas, suggesting that Pakistan was ready for possible combat. In one particular incident, a soldier from India was captured by Pakistan's paramilitary force, the Rangers, after he crossed the border near Firozpur, likely by accident. This event raised tensions further, although talks were soon started between the two countries to secure his return. Meanwhile, the agreement made in 2021 to stop firing across the line of control began to break down shortly after the April attack. By around April 24th, both sides were exchanging gunfire again in several places along the border. Initially, small arms were used, but it quickly escalated to more dangerous weapons, including artillery. One of the worst-hit regions was near Lipa Valley, where Pakistan had reportedly moved large guns, and Indian soldiers retaliated whenever they were attacked. Fighting was not limited to the border area. Intense search operations were also carried out by the Indian Army within the part of Kashmir it controls. Soldiers searched forests and villages, trying to locate the attackers involved in the killing of tourists in Pahalgam. During these operations, fierce gun battles occurred. On April 25th, an Indian soldier lost his life during an encounter in a damper, and 2 men suspected of being involved in the attack were also killed. The very next day, April 26th, another Indian soldier died during more fighting in the same location, and 2 more suspected attackers were shot dead. These incidents added to the growing fears of locals living near the line of control. People living in towns and villages along the border were terrified by the sounds of guns at night and feared that a major conflict could erupt at any moment. Many families prepared their underground bunkers, which had been built during earlier conflicts, in case the violence worsened. A school teacher from one such village told reporters that people were deeply afraid and felt that a serious war could begin at any time. The military forces of both countries remained on high alert, with troops and equipment moved to forward positions. This meant that both nations were ready for any sudden escalation in violence. The entire situation remained extremely fragile, and the possibility of further fighting continued to loom. The combined effect of diplomatic breakdowns, cancelled peace agreements, closed borders, and military buildups created a dangerous environment, not only for the two nations involved, but also for the broader region and the world watching closely. The situation between India and Pakistan became extremely tense and dangerous after a violent attack in Kashmir in April 2025. A simple mistake or misunderstanding could have led to a much bigger and more deadly conflict between the two nuclear-armed neighbors. This growing crisis caused serious concern not only in South Asia, but also across the globe. Other countries, especially those with close ties to India and Pakistan, started paying attention to the unfolding events with deep worry. The presence of nuclear weapons in both countries made the risk even more alarming. The United Nations, a global organization that works to maintain peace, urged both nations to show restraint. This meant they were asked to avoid any aggressive actions that could make the situation worse. The UN encouraged both sides to engage in peaceful dialogue instead of letting tensions grow further. Meanwhile, the United States also observed the matter carefully. This was a sensitive time because the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance was visiting India when the attack took place. Although the American government did not make strong public statements right away, they were aware of the seriousness of the moment. The U.S. has good diplomatic relations with India, but does not want to see a conflict involving Pakistan, so it chose its words and actions very cautiously. India wanted the world to understand its anger and reasons for taking strict measures. Indian officials spoke with leaders from many other countries to share their side of the story. India's foreign minister met with his UK counterpart, and the government also organized a large meeting in New Delhi for representatives from over 100 nations. During these sessions, India shared intelligence that it claimed linked Pakistan to the attackers. Prime Minister Modi said the global community stood by India in its fight against terrorism. However, this international support was not as strong as expected, possibly because world leaders were focused on other crises in different parts of the world. As a result, the pressure from the outside world on both India and Pakistan to step back was weaker than usual. In the past, powerful nations pushing for peace have helped calm similar situations. But this time, the lack of strong international intervention may have allowed things to spiral out of control. The crisis even affected people living far away from South Asia. In countries like the United Kingdom, where many people from India and Pakistan live, emotions ran high. Communities in cities such as London held protests, where people showed support for their country or expressed anger about the conflict. These gatherings sometimes became intense, showing how deeply the dispute affected people all over the world. Back in South Asia, the decisions made by both governments created even more danger. India decided to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty, which had been in place for many decades to manage shared river water. This treaty had survived even during previous times of tension. On the other side, Pakistan said it might no longer follow the Simla Agreement, which helps manage the line of control, the unofficial border in Kashmir, and encourages peace efforts. If these important agreements are ignored or ended, the chances of a bigger problem increase significantly. Meanwhile, fighting along the border became more frequent. Small gunfights between soldiers raised the danger level further. Experts worried that these smaller clashes could easily grow into a full-scale war. With both countries having nuclear weapons, the threat of widespread destruction was real. Political pressure inside each country made matters worse. Leaders in both India and Pakistan wanted to appear strong in front of their people, which made it harder for them to choose peaceful options. This kind of political atmosphere is dangerous because it encourages tough talk and risky actions. The crisis had a terrible impact on the people of Kashmir, where the attack originally happened. Tourism, which many people in the region depend on for income, suffered badly. Visitors stayed away because of the violence and uncertainty. Local communities lived in fear, unsure of what the next day might bring. Just when things had seemed to be improving slowly in the region, this conflict crushed those hopes. Now the path forward is uncertain. It is not clear whether the tension will decrease or continue to rise. The long-standing problems between India and Pakistan, especially the unresolved issue of Kashmir, remain a source of conflict. These deep-rooted issues have caused trouble for decades, and unless they are addressed directly and honestly, the danger of further violence will always remain. It is crucial for both countries to realize the importance of dialogue, cooperation, and mutual understanding. People everywhere hope for a future where India and Pakistan can find lasting peace and focus on the well-being of their citizens. If global leaders, regional players, and civil society all work together, there may still be a chance to turn this dangerous situation into an opportunity for reconciliation and stability.